It is lights out and away we go. Hello racers, welcome to the HOS F1 podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Huff, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, RJ McCullough. RJ, what's going on, my man?
Hello, good sir. This is a little strange because I cannot see you right now, but you're coming in crystal clear, so I'll just have to imagine that beautiful Valtteri Bottas-like mustache.
Yeah, working with my built-in webcam this week, so little gorilla.
Yeah. So, episode 66. Shout out Mario Lemieux. There's never been an F1 driver that has used the number 66, but there is one that's pretty close. Do you know who has a closest number to 66?
I do not.
George Russell, 63.
Oh, interesting. He's got a pretty high up number. I guess they all try to get as low as possible.
Yeah, a lot of them. There's a lot of double numbers, like all the 11, 22, 33, 44. Obviously, those ones are all seem to be taken. It's interesting. There's two guys that have done number 99, Giovinazzi and some guy named Adrian Sutil.
Hey, listen, anybody with that name's got to be pretty wise.
It's a pretty sacred number here in this country. You don't even think of wearing 99. That's Wayne Gretzky's number.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I still have a dealer's choice to give you from our HOS league, but we're going to revamp it over the break. So I'm going to wait till next week to give you your last dealer's choice.
Okay.
I'll give it to you over the week, and we'll have it at the start of next week.
All right.
And we'll have the new format we'll figure out something for the second half because it was going down a path that was just not equal anymore.
Sure.
Yeah.
With Max, unfortunately.
I also have one more question before we get into the topics here. I think you might hold the record for most times watching the first season of Drive to Survive. How many times have you watched that thing? Because I'd say at least once every 2 weeks I get a text from you, something about a moment in Drive to Survive Season 1.
Yes. I'm probably on my sixth rewatch right now. But yeah, I think the last 2 weeks I've kind of just been slowly going through Season 1. But yeah, it's like a comfort show for me, you know. It's what originally sparked interest in the sport for me, and yeah, it is so much fun to go back and watch, especially when you have 2023 context. It honestly, as time goes on, it just adds more layers to just everything that they say. And Will Buxton is just hilarious. He's a great laugh.
Oh yeah. The objective of qualifying is to finish faster than the other cars. You can start the race in front of the other cars. All right. But I guess when we were getting into it, we appreciated that sort of insight. So one more non-F1 topic before we get into F1. There's this video going around the internet that I think is just, I have watched it a million times. I can't get enough of it. I'll put the link in the description of the episode. I put it there for you. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a cop going down a slide. Just every time I watch it, something else about it. The sound, the angle, the reaction. One of the best videos I've ever seen in my life. I can't stop watching it. So I wanted to share that with you. I hope that you've seen it as well. It's very good. Oh, it's something else. And of course, it's in your great country of the United States. Only in America. So now, we move on to another Twitter. There's a couple little Twitter things today that we were talking about. One was that video where Sebastian Vettel, because they released a new Grill the Grid where they asked them questions that are supposed to be hard. But a few years ago, they were asking all the drivers to name the F1 drivers' champions back to 1950, and Sebastian Vettel just nailed them all from start to finish. Unbelievable. So if people haven't seen that, definitely go check that out too. And then there's the other one that someone kind of had a clickbait title on it, but it is kind of a cool video. Danny Ricciardo was right behind Lewis and Max in 2021 Abu Dhabi, which always seems to find its way to come up on this show. But yeah, just his radio after saying I'm glad I wasn't part of that because that seemed pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's definitely, you can tell he's just so glad that he's not involved in that shitstorm at all. Just a complete nightmare. But yeah, I think the tweet was something along the lines of Danny Ricciardo's got like a front row seat to true racing. It was something clearly designed to piss off Lewis Hamilton fans and to prod Max Verstappen stands, I guess. But yeah, the Sebastian Vettel video is extremely impressive. I mean, you've got lots of drivers on the grid that, they remember like various years, but I mean, he just goes straight from present day back in a row without missing a beat, just sitting there thinking. I mean, he just continues to impress me. I love Sebastian Vettel. And also, that is another thing about Drive to Survive Season 1 that really sticks with me, is just how sad I am that Seb never really got to not hit the marks he wanted to achieve with Ferrari, unfortunately, and get that title. Yeah, it's very painful.
Yeah, especially when you see now that how well the Aston Martin's doing, especially at the start of the year. If he would have just stuck around one more year, but I don't know. Who knows what happened? They still might have taken Alonso and bumped him out. Who knows? But speaking of Danny Ric, I don't know if you saw this quote that he had. So he was talking about how like it's nice that he got into the car with 2 races before the break. He thought he was going to get in the summer break, and how he's going to like prepare over the off season, or the summer break, sorry. And he said, quote, "It springboards us a bit better into the second half of the season, and I think personally, I know where my fitness is at, so I can work during the summer break whilst everyone is sipping pina coladas or penis enlargers, whatever you want to call them. I'll be in the gym." In what world do people refer to those pina coladas as penis enlargers?
Yeah, because I mean, there's like a very popular phrase regarding whiskey that kind of is the contrary to that.
Right. Yeah.
Alcohol is not really known to be an enhancement. It's more of a downer.
Yeah, very strange how he just throws that out. Everyone is sipping pina coladas or penis enlargers, whatever you want to call them.
Bro,
I think there's an inside joke we're missing there. I don't know.
I don't know. Daniel, I mean, I think most of the shit he says is just to make himself laugh, because, I mean, one of the first episodes, of course, to bring it back to this, of Drive to Survive, he's still with Red Bull, and I forget what GP they're in, but he's in a car full of, Netflix people, his own people, Red Bull people, and he's just like, "I wanna tickle my scrotum and binge on my nutsack." It's
Oh my God.
I mean, he's a fucking nut, and I love it. I'm again so happy that he's back. I'm sure he's gonna try to. I mean, he's been putting lots of time in the Red Bull simulator, so he's obviously fine-tuned to that. So hopefully he's able to come a little bit better grips to the Alpha Tauri. I mean, he's already doing a pretty decent job. He had a little bit of bad luck in Spa, but yeah, I'm loving seeing him back, especially with Red Bull.
Yeah, no, he's been great. He's already doing better than Yuki in terms of the last few races. So, yeah, glad to have him back. I also saw that video from Coda. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, when he did an entire interview in his Texas accent. It's just like so ridiculous. But it's great. He's great. But yeah, another quote that was out there, which kind of caught me by surprise, just isn't usually something Lewis would kind of talk about, because obviously it's going to stir up chatter. So I don't really know how it came about, if he was asked directly, but maybe you know more. But essentially, Lewis said something along the lines of, if he was driving the same car as Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen would not be having the easy time that he's having. So yeah, do you know any more context to like what spurred that quote coming, or what do you think about Lewis saying that? Because obviously, I mean, it's true, but
yeah, I still pretty much I was only able to like find clips on like Twitter. I didn't watch the full clip, so I'm not 100% sure what prompted him to say that. But from the sort of clips that don't give full context, it doesn't seem like it's Drive to Survive again. How many times am I going to reference that show? Like drama, like intentionally stirring the pot. I mean, I think it's just like a genuine response, because I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, whether he's commenting on Sergio Perez's shortcomings in the last 7 or 8 weekends of racing, or if he's obviously he's not been an equal machinery, so he's commenting on Max's dominance. Maybe it's a mix of both, but I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with him. I think Lewis is probably the best contender. Maybe Leclerc, potentially Alonso. I don't know. Definitely Piastri, but not to say that he does not have the skill, but he is obviously in a much, much, much better car than everybody else on the grid. So obviously, I'm sure Lewis is keen to be in a car that can sort of match that or come close to it. It's not surprising.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the quote itself is a fact. I guess just as a Lewis fan, it's like he usually doesn't open those cans of worms because he knows when he says that it's going to just start discourse. I saw an interesting thread on Twitter, not to go on too much of a tangent, but it was like going through all of these drivers like Schumacher, all the like great drivers of all time, and all their like off-track stuff, and how we all gave them all a pass. But then with Lewis, everyone just, no matter what he does, everyone's all over him. But we don't need to go into that. Just saying. Yeah, it has nothing to do with. There's something different about him than everyone else. One of these things, yeah. So, anyways, Belgium GP sprint race and race. Of course, Max Verstappen, as you said, inevitable. Max Verstappen won again. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Max. I think it was actually the one moment. Actually, there's two things I want to bring up now that I think of it. How close he was to not getting into Q3, which would have dropped him to 16th because he had the 5-place grid penalty, or 15th, I guess. Anyways, and then also that near spin he had, which actually was like an incredible recovery. So those are like the two things that stand out for me. What stood out for you, Mr. Max fan?
Yeah, both of those moments were definitely, sort of, I don't know if they were like they were hurdles, because you don't really see that often. And that, Jesus Christ, my American
you have trouble with that
accent
one.
is really coming through. Yeah, Eau Rouge, it is like
Rouge.
Very treacherous. It's, obviously where a lot of accidents have happened in the past, but yeah, seeing Max almost bin it was really crazy. I sort of like gripped the seat a little bit, like, is something going to happen? But nah, he was able to recover it, obviously. And oh my gosh, special guest. Oh my goodness. She's worth talking about more than Max Verstappen, honestly. But
go ahead.
Gosh, what about Max? Yeah, almost making it, or almost staying in Q2 would have added just so much more intrigue to the race for me. I mean, seeing him, do I think he still potentially could have won from P15, P16? Yeah, absolutely. But would have been a lot more fun, and I think a much bigger challenge, because he had a great start, and he just completely coasted to the front extremely quickly. Checo pretty much put up no fight. So, yeah, and that last lap in Q2 sent him over the edge. It's just, It is like not even a meme at this point. It's just a fact. He's just inevitable in this car.
No. Oh, I thought you were talking about his radio. We need to discuss his radio communications during
with his engineer.
Yes, I actually tweeted it because I knew I wanted to talk about it. We've been tweeting a lot lately. Okay. But yeah, sorry, you were saying that at the end of Q2, he was inevitable?
Oh, yeah, because he just put in that lap last minute. I mean, he got over the line with just a couple of seconds left and still managed to put in a lap that I think, had him on provisional pole going into Q3, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, that would have, again, been much more exciting than where he ended up starting. But he's just, he is a goddamn monster right now. It's something, it's a sight. It really is.
It's something. But I found the quote. It's just distracted. Anyways, I found the quote. Max Verstappen. Now, this is just after he got through to Q3, barely, but he got through. Him to his radio guy. Max, I should have pushed 2 laps in a row like I said. His guy at GP. But you were through, Max. Max, I don't give a fuck, mate, if I'm through in P10. It's just shit execution. Then GP. Okay, and then when the track was 2 seconds quicker for the final lap and you didn't have any energy left, how would that have gone down? But you tell me what you want to do in Q3 and we'll do it. Let me know. Sets, fuel, run plan. Oh, and then after they got into a little bit again, I think it was during Q3 or the race, they had another little back and forth, and I don't like anyone on Red Bull except for GP. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna say GP. But the way he deals with Max is unbelievable. He does not take Max's shit, but he also doesn't get worked up. He's like very calm, but there's like a lot of undertone in really saying like, oh, but you tell me what to do in Q3, Max. Mm-hmm. Like, the only one that I'll actually kind of stand up to Max, and I love it. It's like one of the only things that keeps me going.
Yeah, he's not afraid to. I mean, he's not just a yes man to Max, like I'm sure a lot of the Red Bull garage is. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a guy like Max needs someone like that because, Max, does have his outbursts, but he does at least respect GP. And after everything is said and done, he still, respects his decisions. And, they can at least hug it out at the end of the day and not have any grudges towards one another. No matter what's said, they can sort of keep it in the race and realize that both of them are trying to, achieve top of the line performance. But again, Max can sort of put certain aspects as a priority over maybe what's best for the team in some instances, and I think GP is really good at sort of helping him maintain his goals for the race and as far as short term goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a good duo, and they'll probably be together for years to come and win at least one more championship. So there's that. Other talking points. We're obviously not going to go too in depth into the Belgian GP. Doggy bark. The dogs are just making appearances today. Episode 66 featuring both of our dogs. Oscar, two things about Piastri. Number one, that sprint shootout lap that he put in, that's unbelievable. It was 0.011 off Max. And I mean, credit to Max for pulling out the lap at the last second, but for the McLaren car, which, as we saw in the race, wasn't on the pace this weekend, to do that after Max was on pole in normal qualifying by 0.8 of a second, that was wow. So Oscar, really, really impressive. And then in the first lap of the race, up until a couple hours ago, I was at least under the impression that Carlos Sainz absolutely screwed and pinched Oscar into the wall and ruined his race. But there was a Reddit thread which was very in-depth, which I'm still not convinced wasn't done by Carlos Sainz himself, that kind of explained that turn showed historical evidence of, in turn one, the move that Oscar made was a little bit riskier than originally looked, and that there's been situations before basically where the same things happened and the other people have been blamed, but this time Sainz was blamed. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's that just going through the analysis of what actually happened between the two of them and comparing it to old incidents. I think what the issue with Sainz was his reaction. We were talking about that. Yeah. Fully blaming Oscar and not taking any sort of responsibility or calling it a racing incident, straight up just being like, no, Oscar did a stupid move. He's a stupid rookie, blah, blah, blah. I did nothing wrong. I think that's sort of what rubbed people the wrong way, and Sainz has got a little bit of backlash. Luckily, it's the summer break, so this will 100% blow over before the end of this silly season break happens.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Besides his reaction, if you look back at the replay, my only thing is that compared to some of the older examples, when he had that third car that was potentially pinching Sainz, I think it was Lewis, maybe it was definitely a Mercedes. Or
in this one, Lewis was on the outside behind Perez, and then so that did kind of influence it a bit, which I didn't realize.
There was a pretty decent gap between Lewis and Sainz. So Sainz did have some room. Yeah, it's not so. Mm-hmm. It's not like he had absolutely nowhere to go. So could Sainz have potentially backed out a little bit, left Oscar just a little bit more room? May have potentially left a little bit less damage. But yeah, I mean, personally, just seems like a racing incident to me. It seems like something always happens at that corner. People are always trying to overtake because you can do such sharp bends and take the inside line if you're really brave enough. But yeah, sometimes it puts you into the wall and smashes you into the Ferrari or a McLaren.
Indeed. I also, before I forget, I want to mention that the penalty that Lewis got in the sprint was horseshit. And they didn't even bother challenging it because it's like a couple points. Really, it doesn't really matter this year. But you can bet if this was another like 2021 year that would have been heavily contested. Yeah, because it was like a clear racing incident. I think even Red Bull fans like yourself have said that. And like if you're gonna start giving penalties for that, then it's like, what is F1 going to become? Like, there's been so many times where I think guys have done worse stuff, and I know I'm obviously biased as a Lewis Hamilton fan, but it was just kind of like, you don't really like to see that. And I saw an article about it today, how it went down, that there was like, I don't know, 4 stewards or race guys that decide on the penalties, and there was one guy in the room that was like vehemently against it being a penalty. It's like, no, that's the definition of a racing incident. But I guess it came down to the one guy that makes the decision at the end of the day. He said it was a penalty, but didn't really matter in the end that much. Perez, quickly, he started, or I don't even remember where he started, maybe second, because Max obviously started 6th. But regardless, Perez was leading after like the first turn or whatnot, and then he was leading pretty quickly. But Max from P6 caught him by lap 17, and then just ran away with it once again. I know we make a big deal about it on this show, but like, I certainly wasn't impressed. I know they're like, oh, Perez got second place, good, kind of patting him on the back like that. I wasn't impressed at all by Perez. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I mean, some people, the F1 Twitter account even, are sort of treating it as like, oh, he's back in his form, but yeah, he's just not really putting in the type of performance that car can pull off. I mean, I know this is such like a F1 Twitter opinion, but if you had Leclerc or Lewis or maybe even Piastri and that other Red Bull, I think we'd be seeing much more of a contention between P1. So
yeah, no, I agree. The only other thing was, now, when Lando Norris broke the trophy last week, some were critical of him, whereas it was just like an innocent mistake. You know, I think that mistakes happen sometimes, and you can't really be too harsh on someone when they make a mistake that he's since apologized for. But the Red Bull breaking the trophy again, I mean, I don't know if it's Christian Horner, Helmut Marko. They got to put one of these guys in jail. Like, the blatant disrespect for the sport of Formula One and the trophies that people work so hard on, and they're just willing to break it 2 weeks in a row. I mean, it just doesn't sit well with me that how much better they think they are than everyone, and I don't know if I can watch this anymore without saying anything. So you see something, you say something, and I don't like it.
I feel you. I mean, yeah, at least it didn't happen on the podium this time. It happened. I'm honestly surprised that it doesn't happen more often, honestly. Because
those running pictures, like, of course it would get knocked over.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got 2,
videos.
I guess with Red Bull, especially so frequently with the podium, it's just, how does that not happen all the time? I don't know if they're just making more and more flimsy trophies, or if they're just being more careless, I guess.
I kind of feel like now they just have to break them the rest of the year. Like, just keep it going.
That'll be Lando's
something that'll make
tradition.
them winning up exciting. So speaking of sprint races, we've discussed a lot about the format of sprint races, and they have changed the format for next season, it looks like. I don't know if this is official yet, but there's enough about it out there that I think it's going to happen because it just makes sense. They're not necessarily changing the point structure or the actual format of the race, but the weekend structure. The weekend schedule is more straightforward. The new format will keep the free practice session on Friday morning, with the afternoon qualifying session dedicated to the sprint race, and then the race. So we'll go practice Friday morning, sprint race qualifying, sprint race Saturday morning, race qualifying Saturday afternoon, race Sunday. So that makes a lot more sense to me. I think it'll be actually more exciting because having the they should have the sprint qualifying before the race qualifying, I think. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that?
That's a slightly confusing, just because I think it's going to be a little strange having a sprint and then qualifying followed in the same day. But that's awesome. I mean, wait, is that how you said it worked?
Yeah, I was just thinking, what if someone like crashes their car in the sprint and then they can't qualify?
Yeah, then you're screwed for the race. So I mean, that potentially adds a little bit more risk back into the sprint, because kind of where they're at now, you're kind of safe across the board if you don't just completely break your car in half. But I don't know. I'm as a fan excited about that. I mean, watch the sprint Saturday morning, take a break, get ready for qualifying for the next day later that day. I mean, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good Saturday, that's for sure. And I do like, I mean, it can be annoying if you have to work. I mean, I'm lucky that I have a job where I can watch when I'm at work, but I can see it being annoying not being able to watch on the Friday. But it does make, like, say you're going to a race, like if we were going to Miami next year or something, it would make it, as a fan, more exciting to have 3 days of excitement, basically, as opposed to just one day being a practice day. We did have some big changes, though. The summer break it didn't even wait till the summer break to start getting crazy. Alpine, I'm talking about Alpine and them getting rid of, like, everyone. Weird timing that they announced it and then said, like, before the Belgian GP, and then said it's not going to be in effect until after. So, like, they're just sitting there managing the team during the race, knowing that they're losing their jobs after the race. Kind of a strange position to be in. But Alpine has got rid of Otmar, you know how I am with this name, Otmar Szafnauer, Alan Permain, and Pat Fry. Pat Fry is joining Williams as their new chief technical officer. Obviously, Otmar is the team principal, and Alan Permain has been there for, I want to say, like 30, 35 years. Like, he's been there forever, going back to the Renault days. So, pretty big shakeup. I guess my question to you, other than what do you think about this, is how much of this do you think is attributed to all those celebrities that just bought a huge stake in Alpine?
Oh, man, I didn't even honestly consider that. I mean, I'm sure the recent lack of performance has probably not gone over well, and they're definitely impulsively probably trying to make changes just so these guys don't potentially back out or, cut off their wallets. But yeah, it's wild. I mean, Otmar, sort of talking, knowing he's going to be leaving. It's pretty strange, him being on the pit wall. I mean, it's definitely weird, but I mean, Alpine, if there's one thing we've learned, is that they really have no idea what they're doing when it comes to their internal management and retaining people, hiring people they want to keep. I mean, it's just been a total disaster. I mean, even Cyril from Drive to Survive days, he Renault,
another one.
He commented on sort of the state that Alpine is in, and there's a lot of people saying bring him back, but I believe he's the team principal of, like, Hyundai Motorsport team or something like that. He's got a job somewhere else. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not really surprised. I do sort of wonder if they might regret getting Gasly. I wonder if that's gone through their heads, or if they're happy with that decision still, because in Drive to Survive, the newest season, Otmar, in his interview talked about, their expectations for Gasly and sort of what they expected from him. He's a race winner, all that, but they've just sort of dropped the ball a little bit. I don't know if that's on the drivers or the team, but doing this at the time that they did it does not scream, we have a plan, though. So where do you think Otmar is going to end up, though? Because he's clearly made it known that he has a job lined up. We don't know where.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, because you seem to have your ear to the ground, so to speak, more on this one. The only thing I've seen is that he might have ties to an upcoming American team, which, other than Haas, there isn't one right now. So I guess that would be if there's a new team coming in or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not too knowledgeable about his future. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine it would be one of the top 4 teams. But what rumors have you been seeing?
Yeah, so Haas has definitely been thrown around there. I don't really know how that would work when it comes to Gunther. If Gunther would retain his position, if Otmar would take a lower tier position, or vice versa, I don't know how that would work. There's also rumors that he could be joining at Audi. There's also rumors that Ford is a potential, because they're going to be joining Red Bull that's in 2026, isn't it? Or is that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they're not starting that next year. No, that's going to be 2026 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Ford. He's got ties to Ford. Also, Alfa Romeo potentially. That's also another thing that we were planning on talking about. Alfa Romeo might be merging with Haas going forward next year. They'll be leaving Sauber, so we can talk about that a little bit more. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of potential places he could go. I don't know if the Red Bull Ford is the most likely, but yeah, the fact that I feel like he's proven himself to be capable as a team principal. I don't know if he's necessarily like incompetent. I think Alpine is incompetent enough. I don't think he had anything to do with that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I wish they would just go back to Renault. I mean, I don't even forgot that they were the old Renault, but I guess obviously it comes down to money. The other one that you just touched on a little bit, Haas and Alfa Romeo to potentially merge as early as next season, I believe. And you brought up an interesting point that there's kind of rumblings about Kevin Magnussen not retaining his seat next year. And this would kind of all tie in potentially with if Alfa Romeo does merge with Haas, they, from what we've heard, love Zhou Guanyu. Am I saying it right? Is it Guanyu Zhou or Zhou Guanyu? I've got that confused in my head now. Apologies. Zhou Guanyu. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. Whatever Coffee says is gospel. So Zhou Guanyu over to Haas seems like it could happen if that merger does happen, which leaves Bottas alone at Alfa Romeo. But yeah, I guess I don't really know how that works in terms of, I don't know what happens to Bottas. He's just on whatever team takes over for Alfa Romeo. If that happens, like, how do you see that playing out? Like, which team? I think it's Alfa Romeo wants to partner with Haas, so it would remain Gunther's team, so to speak. Like, Nico Hülkenberg would be then racing for that team no matter what, correct? Or
yeah,
I don't really know how that works.
Yeah, I think Nico's locked in with Haas. I think Zhou Guanyu is attached to Alfa Romeo, so the rumblings are that he could potentially be taking over Kevin Magnussen's seat at Haas if Alfa Romeo does sponsor Haas next year. Bottas, as far as I'm aware, he is locked in at least through 2025, 2024. I think it's definitely not. He does not have ties to Alfa Romeo. I know that's Sauber, so I'd imagine they are keen on keeping Bottas when Audi does take over that team. I could see them keeping Valtteri 100%. But if Zhou Guanyu does leave, who could potentially replace him? There's the only name that I've sort of been seeing thrown around is Felipe Drogovic. I've seen that name thrown around a little bit, that he could potentially be recruited to join the Audi squad. So
yeah, I guess who is it that takes over for Alfa Romeo? Is it I'm just looking up Sauber to become Audi from 2026. So does that mean that there's potential for a new team on the grid next year if Alfa Romeo and Haas join forces? Like, is that a potential Andretti? Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I wonder how Sauber's
and
going
Alfa
to treat
Romeo
that.
merge. That kind of leaves like an open spot.
Yeah, for just 2 years though. So that's kind of the tricky thing.
Right.
It's finding a sponsor that's willing to pay that money, but it's like, hey, we're only here for 2 more years, so we got to make it count. And so I don't know.
I believe, in fact, I'm like 99.9% sure that Haas and Alfa Romeo are both basically junior teams, for lack of a better term. Like, they use Ferrari engines, and like they're under Ferrari's umbrella, I guess is a better way to say it. So yeah, it's sort of interesting that I guess that idea of if they merge, then what happens to that other empty spot where Bottas would just be on a island if K-Mag gets replaced with Zhou Guanyu. But we also had another potential sponsor. We talked a little bit about how AlphaTauri is being dropped as a sponsor, and Red Bull is going to move to more of a junior squad type team like they used to have with Toro Rosso. But news kind of has come out a little bit today that Hugo Boss is going to be replacing AlphaTauri as the title sponsor of that team. So it could still be the Red Bull Junior team just under the Hugo Boss name instead of AlphaTauri, and then maybe potentially sponsoring part of Red Bull as well. I thought that Hugo Boss was sponsoring Aston Martin. Could be wrong on that. Wouldn't be the first time. But I don't know. I tweeted about it. I can't wait to see that livery. The Hugo Boss livery is going to be, fantastical. Probably not going to be able to root for them because they're, it depends. If they still have Danny and Yuki, then I'll be good. But I don't know what they're going to do. I don't really think Danny will be there next year, but I don't know. Well, it remains to be seen. But any last thoughts on the merger of Haas and Alfa Romeo? And what do you think about this Hugo Boss, Red Bull, AlphaTauri triumvirate?
Yeah, it's potentially a really cool opportunity for AlphaTauri. I did also read that if that doesn't end up happening, that Hugo Boss could just become a title sponsor for Red Bull. So it could potentially be Hugo, Oracle, Red Bull Racing, unless they don't keep their Oracle sponsor. Because actually, maybe I read that Oracle is pulling out. I could be wrong about that, but maybe. Hugo Boss, Red Bull.
Why would you do that with such a good car?
Yeah, I don't know. I could be completely wrong about that. Like you said, wouldn't be the first time. Definitely been wrong about a lot of shit on this show, but I think it's really cool. I would love to see a big team or a big brand, I guess, like that sponsor AlphaTauri, sort of give that team a little bit more of its own identity instead of just being the Red Bull second team. And I think if Daniel Ricciardo's not in the Red Bull seat next year, then he's pretty much going to be a lock for AlphaTauri. If Checo manages to pull through, then I think they're like, all right, we'll let him run out his contract. We'll let him run through 2024. 2025, maybe get Daniel in there, depending on how he runs. It's a possibility. Or Yuki, depending on how they run. But I think unless Checo just completely bombs it, I think it's a pretty solid, prediction that he's going to stay next year. But the AlphaTauri, or whatever they're going to be called next year, sort of pulling the R&D from Red Bull is going to make Yuki and Daniel, that battle, much more compelling and much more exciting to watch every week. So, any more money to give to that team, I'm super excited about. So,
I bet you are.
Yeah, because, when you watch some of the old races from the last 5 or 6 years, that team's been competitive at times. There's been times where the second Red Bull team has been ahead of the Red Bull drivers. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened, and it's very exciting when it does. So hopefully we get potentially more scenarios like that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really considered that yet. I guess if they are, I know that they want to make it more of a junior system again, and they are going to be just using more of a Red Bull type car instead of having their own, which they should have always been doing anyways, I guess. But yeah, I guess I didn't really put two and two together on how that will affect Danny, because I thought I don't really see him staying there next year if it's a bottom of the barrel car again. But yeah, if they're just going to have basically a Red Bull light, then why not? I just got a notification on my phone of Verstappen picks blank as his best drive of 2023 so far. What do you think it is?
Did he say Spa?
Nope.
No? Miami?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, because he had that battle with Leclerc.
Yeah, and then he did have to overtake Checo, which...
Womp womp. Hey, I got a second try. There we go.
Yeah, good for you. I wonder how much Hugo Boss, if they have to... sponsoring Red Bull, being the new Oracle as opposed to sponsoring AlphaTauri, that's just got to be an extra 0 on the end if you want to do Red Bull as opposed to AlphaTauri.
Right. Jesus.
That's pretty much I think all we've got. We're going to do a tier list about how we rank the first half drivers, but we'll save that for next week because there's not as much content to go around, or next episode. One last thing I want to mention. I saw Oppenheimer last week. I'm not going to say a word because you're seeing it tomorrow.
Yes,
Thursday, I believe.
tomorrow. Not
So,
in IMAX. Womp womp.
I didn't see it in IMAX either, but still, the audio is like unbelievable. But yeah, we'll discuss that a little bit on our next episode. Maybe do a little review. Who knows? But yeah, I think it was a fun episode. Got in some good topics. Any last thoughts from you, Mr. Huff?
Yes, tune in because we're gonna still try to do some content. Definitely going to continue to make episodes over the summer break. So yeah, just keep coming back for that. Subscribe on our YouTube channel, rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
See ya.